That cistern has been exposed his whole life.
5'11", 205-pounder out of Orlando, Florida. He has the ability to break tackles.
California, ladies and gentlemen.
Quarterback.
I am the luckiest guy in the world.
Super Bowl winning coach, pioneering broadcaster, video game icon. A larger-than-life personality, John Madden was by any definition a true original. During his 30-year broadcasting career, Madden was widely considered the voice of the National Football League.
You have to attack them with the pass, and you have to attack them deep with the pass.
His passionate way of calling games with unique catchphrases,
Packers came out, they went boom, and they got 10 points.
And a love for using a telestrator helped explain the game to hardcore and casual fans across America. He called NFL games for all 4 major networks, announcing 11 Super Bowls and earning 16 sports Emmys during his time in the broadcast booth. Madden's NFL playing career was short-lived. He was drafted in 1958 by the Philadelphia Eagles, but a knee injury cut it all short. That's when he decided to try his hand at coaching, eventually becoming the youngest head coach in professional football history at the age of 33. In 1977, he led the Oakland Raiders to a Super Bowl victory and is still the franchise's all-time wins leader. Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his coaching career in 2006.
Boom! Tough acting, tin acting.
Madden was a television advertiser's dream, becoming the pitch man for numerous brands.
Let me tell you, Ace is a place for me.
In 1988, Madden entered the video game world, lending his voice and name to what's now called Madden NFL.
You know, anything that goes that far, that fast, ought to have dinner and an in-flight movie.
His video game is still the most popular football video game ever, selling more than 100 million copies worldwide. Whether it was his video game, his broadcasting career, or as a Hall of Fame coach, his passion for the game is what will always be remembered.
Some of us think maybe we will be immortal, that we'll live forever, but when you really think about it, we're not going to be. But I say this, through this bust, with these guys, in that hall, we will be forever.
Joining me now, Bomani Jones. He's a sports journalist and host of The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Bomani, it's good to see you. I've been following your Twitter feed this evening and seeing just the impact that he has made. And one thing you said was, it's a reason people of our generation, frankly, don't appreciate any other color commentator in football. Tell me what John Madden meant to football.
So I think the most interesting thing about Madden, and you look at this from top to bottom from his coaching career all the way through, and even with the advertisement stuff that you saw with the Tinactin and all those things, is that he was a regular dude, right? Like there was a very approachable quality to him where football coaches now are much more slick CEO types and ultimately very boring. You never said that about Madden, but there was something really tangible and approachable about him. So if you go back and look at him in his coaching days, with like the short sleeve dress shirt and the tie, like he looked like almost like Dan Connor from Roseanne going to work, except he was coaching one of the best football teams there was. Then he becomes a broadcaster, and the way that he approached it was so much like a teacher, where he really enjoyed what he was talking about and always explained it in a very digestible way that was never intended to show you how much he knew as much as how much there was that you could learn and then pick up from it. Like the video game, to me, when you start talking about him, that's like Jimmy Dean on the sausage almost, right? Like that's a very secondary part of what he was. But for a significant portion of time for a lot of people, especially those of us who grew up at the tail end of the monoculture era in this country, you look at John Madden really as almost like somebody you knew because he approached everything like you would hope somebody you knew would approach it.
It's true. And when you heard him do commentary, you didn't get the feeling of saying, shh, I want to hear the game. You wanted to hear his insight. You wanted to hear him add on. You liked it. You smiled. He was also, as you mentioned, he was the head NFL coach at just the age of 32. I mean, explain how just big of a deal that is. 32 years old, a head coach in the NFL?
Well, not just 32, but I know at the time that he retired, he had the highest winning percentage of any head coach. Like the Raiders were one of the marquee franchises of the NFL for the 1970s. And so part of, coaching the Raiders is you work for Al Davis. So he's going to do a whole lot of what's going on there. But with Madden, the record that he put up and leading this kind of outlaw franchise, like it's very interesting that he is such a beloved figure because the Raiders are not a universally beloved sort of organization. But to be that young and be able to coach a team and be consistently successful. And then ultimately when he left, it wasn't because he wasn't winning. It's because he became terrified of flying, which again became another very human part of the John Madden story.
You mentioned wins. Of course, I'm from Minnesota, so Minnesota's still mad about the Super Bowl. So I'm going to put that out there for a second and leave that there for a second. But, Monty, let me ask you, though, you say that Madden set an unreachable standard. Tell me about what that means.
Well, for me, the thing with Madden was just as a communicator, right? Like, we can separate this from football. If you're talking about anything, the ability to do it in a conversational tone while also being informative, while also never being condescending, is just really, really, really hard to do. So for all these people who do the color commentary job on football, nobody really has a really high overall Q rating. And I really think it is because people like me, I'm 41, John Madden was the standard of that, like how you can explain these things very well, how you can be likable while you do it. It's hard for anybody else to live up to that. Like when you start talking about like Jerry Rice is the greatest wide receiver of all time or Jim Brown is the greatest running back of all time, those are things that nobody really argues with you about. John Madden is the greatest sports broadcaster on television of all time. You're not going to get anybody to argue with you about that either.
Well, a lot of people miss the enthusiasm he would bring to the game, the idea of his phrasing, things like, what was it, wham and boom and doink and all the different things he would talk about. But I think about John Madden. I don't think about Steve Madden. I think about John Madden. You are the same age, Bomani, so forgive me. We are both 41, so I remember every person I knew was always playing Madden, had the legacy of that. I know it's secondary, but he was somebody that people associate. I mean, he essentially was the brand of the NFL. He was enjoyable about it, and he had the staying power in a league that most people are able to churn and get out. How did he have the staying power? Was it the Madden bust, the authenticity, the fact that he had been a player, that he had been a coach, he'd never worked a day in his life, as he talked about?
I think the authenticity is probably the biggest thing. I mean, that's still the most attractive quality that anybody can present, that even if people don't agree with you necessarily, like Charles Barkley's success as a broadcaster is a testament to that. Authenticity wins out above all else. But as a broadcaster, you got to provide, for lack of a better term, a service to the people who are listening to you. And so Madden stopped being in the background, which is where most broadcasters really are. And his partner, Pat Summerall, was so good at being in the background and knowing how to pick his spots, when to get in, when to get out. Madden used a lot more words, but when he's there doing it and he came out there, you were always better off for the commentary that you got from him because it always was so explanatory. Like, that was the thing for me in watching it is I really did feel like I was learning things about football. Like, he's almost like the football version of, like, Schoolhouse Rock in that way. You're learning, but it's medicine, but it tastes good, you know?
Everything but the soundtrack. Thank you so much, Bomani. Nice talking to you.
All right, you too.
Well, the U.S. has now hit a record number of COVID cases. This is 2 years into the pandemic. What you need to know after this.
Finding stuff is hard, but finding
Cash plus complimentary maintenance when you sign up for Ford Pass Reward.
Memory, but unfortunately, it seems like New Yorkers have forgotten their history. Under no circumstances is it okay for a government to control our lives this way.
Immune health.
Your parents seem to take such a...
How a request from the Biden White House is affecting the January 6th Select Committee's investigation into the final days of the Trump White House. That's next.
X.
Started at CBS, later partnering with Pat Summerall, becoming the network's top announcing duo. Madden moved to Fox in 1994 and later moved to NBC's Sunday Night Football. Madden earned a bachelor and master's degree from Cal Poly in 1958. He was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, but a knee injury ended his career. He was brought to the Oakland Raiders as a linebacker coach. Madden then replaced the head coach at age 32, beginning a remarkable 10-year run that earned him a spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Raiders, now based in Las Vegas, said in a statement that the Raiders family is deeply saddened by the passing of the legendary John Madden, and sportscaster Jim Gray calls him a great coach and the best broadcaster ever. Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys owner, says, "I'm not aware of anyone who has made a more meaningful impact on the National Football League than John Madden." And also a short while ago this evening, the death was announced of former Democratic Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. 82-year-old Reid of Nevada battled pancreatic cancer. John.
Matt, thank you for that report. It is a sad day for football. All right. For weeks, the Ingram Angle has been bringing you the latest on Leah Thompson, the UPenn athlete who's upending women's swimming.
Network of the most successful real estate agents in America that'll sell your home.
No, and he just never got it to the right side. He kicked it straight.
He likes that ego part of it, and that's just who Brock is too.
Porter Beth.
With Farmers Auto multi-policy discount, the more policies you have with us, the more.
That there were going to be several people shopping. And so those are the questions that you ask, Laura Coach, and those are the questions that we want to get answered. They do training for these type of scenarios. What did the training tell them to do? We think that the training was not followed completely in this matter, and tragically, this little girl was left dying on the dressing room floor with her mother trying to wake her.
Oh, the description of what happened is just so heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. Ben Crump, thank you so much for your time tonight and for helping us to understand better. And please extend our deepest, my personal condolences to the family as well. I know you will. Thank you, Ben Crump.
Thank you, Laura.
And thank you all for watching. Our coverage continues.
You could wait all.
And KDLT, from all of us to all of you, have a very good evening and stay warm out there.
The First Alert Weather Team, only on Dakota News Now.
KSOO TV.
KXO.
You're thinking, wait a minute, this is a baseball stadium with a retractable roof because of the heat in the summertime to keep the air conditioning.
This is a battleground.
From WeatherTech.
Say the way to prevent police-induced
Texture, so they'll blend right in for a natural, effortless look.
President Carter at one of his at his church and went to one of the services, and my son was so greatly influenced.
Tonight at 10, and bracing for an influx of guests as temperatures dip on the night beat at 10.
Happens when you block heartburn with one Prilosec OTC.
Of mine you want, at prices you really want. The triple treat box, only from Pizza Hut.
The party of the year is
Sugar and nutrients to support immune health.
Aleve-X. It's fast, powerful, long-lasting.
because of the brain damage he sustained as a.
Use your MasterCard to make secure purchase.
Plus, right before the ball drop, LL Cool J hits the stage.
Let's count it down together.
Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve with Ryan Seacrest, live on ABC.
We met somebody special.
It was myself, Obama! Make organizing your home your.
The officers involved in Chris Ochoa's interrogation.
Check on down to his receiver in the flat.
Round number 2, declaring the winner by tap out due to arm triangle choke, and still the undisputed.
I tell people all the time, especially.
We do what we have to do.
If I die, avenge me.
Open the gate! A new FBI Most Wanted next Tuesday, 10/9 Central.
By Shane Carwin and turns things around in the second round, locking in a beautiful arm triangle choke to secure his place.
Who just can do just about anything, win an Oscar.
We'll see you next time right here for another edition.
They are close. Gives them a
Ragnight.
Already the all-time leader in threes, Steph at it again, only needing one to reach 3,000. See and hear how he got it against the Nuggets. The Lakers lost 5 in a row, 2 games under 500, and in need of a win. Did they right the ship in Houston? And 3 days and counting until the college football playoff. We get you set with reports from Texas and Florida. That's ahead on SportsCenter.
I have never worked a day in my life. I went from player to coach to a broadcaster, and I am the luckiest guy in the world.
What a life it was. With that, we say welcome to SportsCenter with John Anderson. I'm Michael Lee. So often in sports, and especially on this very program, we as fans throw around the words legend and icon a bit too loosely. But using both of those words when mentioning John Madden may still fall short of describing the totality of his life and career. He's simply one of the most influential people in American sports history.
John Madden was a blocking sled guy at heart. Despite the video game fame, the immense broadcast popularity, football was his game, and he gave as much to it as he got out of it. He devoted his life to it, a life that ended today at the age of 85. Susie Colbert tries to get to all of it.
Before he became one of the most influential TV analysts of all time,
It's really going to hurt them in their offensive line.
John Earl Madden grew up in the suburbs of San Francisco and earned all-conference honors as an offensive tackle at Cal Poly. In 1958, the Philadelphia Eagles selected him in the 21st round, but a knee injury before his rookie season kept him from ever playing a down in the NFL. Madden turned to coaching and learned the ropes from Don Coryell at San Diego State. It was there that Oakland Raiders owner Al Davis first met Madden at a practice and opened a door back to the NFL. Madden was hired as a linebackers coach in 1967, and 2 years later, at the age of 32, he became one of the youngest head coaches in NFL history.
I think if you play for somebody, you can't ask to play for anybody more dedicated to the football team. That's the only thing that he cares about in life, I think.
While he propelled the Raiders into the NFL's elite, Madden's teams lost 5 AFC title games in his first 7 years and suffered memorable defeats.
It's cut out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
But in 1976, fortunes changed for the Silver and Black, and Oakland won its first Super Bowl by defeating the Minnesota Vikings.
John Madden's grin is from ear to ear. He looks like a split watermelon.
He was smart. He was a teacher. He was great. So he handled the players. He grew as a coach. And obviously he made his place in the sun as a truly great coach.
Madden retired after 10 seasons with 103 wins. Still a Raiders franchise record and the highest winning percentage of any coach in NFL history, just ahead of Vince Lombardi. After coaching, Madden reinvented himself with a career in television at CBS Sports. He quickly became known around the league for his engaging personality, flamboyant delivery,
Boom, you get him?
and his use of the telestrator. From 1979 to 2009, Madden worked for all 4 major American television networks and covered 11 Super Bowls. He never traveled by airplane due to anxiety from claustrophobia. Instead, Madden traveled in a tailor-made bus that became known as the Madden Cruiser.
First came together, I remember him sweating and thinking he was nervous about being on camera. When we did the opening, I didn't realize at the time that he had such fear of heights. He was so claustrophobic.
An unexpected twist in Madden's career came when Electronic Arts approached him about endorsing a new video game.
When we first started out, it was even before the video games, it was a computer game. Welcome to the Madden Championship Edition.
The interactive obsession has since sold over 100 million copies worldwide and is still growing.
In your wildest dreams, we didn't expect it to be what it is.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame has recognized Madden twice. In 2002, he received the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award, and 4 years later, the Veterans Committee selected him for induction into the Hall.
Today feels like the second time in my life that I'm being carried off the shoulders of others.
John Madden's connection with the NFL spanned more than 40 years, and his passion for the sport and the ability to simplify the complicated game of football are what define his legacy. His influence will continue to be felt for years to come.
I have never worked a day in my life. I went from player to coach to a broadcaster, and I am the luckiest guy in the world.
The Raiders organization released the following statement on John Madden. Quote, "The Raiders family is deeply saddened by the passing of the legendary John Madden, few individuals meant as much to the growth and popularity of professional football as Coach Madden, whose impact on the game, both on and off the field, were immeasurable. The thoughts and prayers of the Raider Nation are with Virginia, Joseph, Michael, and the entire Madden family at this time. You take a look back over his coaching career, and what a career it was, going from the AFL to the NFL after the league merged, winning more than 100 games in those 10 seasons with the Raiders, 7 division titles, and of course that win back in Super Bowl 11. And as you just saw, John Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006.
And the man who was the MC in 2006 in Canton, Ohio, when John Madden went into the Hall of Fame, and the man who was synonymous with the NFL here at ESPN, Chris Berman, joins us now.
Hey, John.
And, we mark everything, right? Everything, every graphic is merger, pre-merger.
Right.
You're a pre-merger guy. What did John Madden mean is too big a question. So I want to start pre-merger and just your first recollections of John Madden, the coach.
Well, here was this large coach that you knew was in his young 30s, and his teams were great. He was an assistant on the Raiders Super Bowl team, Super Bowl II. And then, of course, coached in all those championship games and had so many Hall of Famers. And you talk about a team, John, pre-merger and then into the AFC in the 70s that was a bunch of characters, and I say that in a loose way, and I know a lot of those guys, but they all played hard. They all came together. John didn't worry about haircuts, a lot of things. When I think of John Madden, the coach, I think of a team that was always in it. And sometimes, he was 1-6 in championship games. Whoa. Have you heard of the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s? Have you heard of the Miami Dolphins of the 70s? The Chiefs beat them one time, and they won the Super Bowl. So with John Madden on his teams, they were always in it. They were always tough. They were never out of it. And the grit that and the wildness that, maybe that was part of inner John a little bit, you know? He was a lineman. He played both ways, I guess, back in college. So there you go.
Yeah, he would have been probably the first players coach. We talk about now how they get along,
Right.
and as you said, some of the characters and what those
Oh,
Raiders
my
teams
goodness.
did, and yet they came out and performed on Sunday. So I think in that regard, he was very much a players coach. Talk about 1-6, and yet what did the Super Bowl win do for him and his legacy? Because he won with great success.
Yeah.
To have that championship is...
Well, and it was the first for the Raiders. So the first one for the Oakland Raiders, and John being carried off, and I think the shot is up here somewhere. And he had, like I said, it shouldn't be a win in the Super Bowl to legitimize everything, because he won more than 3/4 of his regular season games. That's actually impossible, isn't it, John?
Right.
But he did. So it meant that flame that the Raiders have still, I know it's Al's, obviously, but that first Super Bowl, that was the torch. So it didn't legitimize everything he did, but it was like, it reminded people, like, toward the end of his coaching career, which began at 32, that he's a hell of a coach. And you don't have to win 5 Super Bowls to be a hell of a coach. He was in the running for a ton of them.
So we kind of get to know him. He's the coach of the Raiders. So everybody kind of knows that. But then over 30 years in broadcasting, like, we got to know him like he was, like he felt like he broadcast
right here.
to me, right? Like that. I realize there's millions of people. It felt like he was just talking to me, which is a gift.
Unbelievable gift, because you and I, maybe, Michael, we're big football fans, for example. So we talked to them because he coached the Raiders, and my goodness, okay, now it might be a kind of a half football fan. Oh, he made the game understandable to me. And now I'm a casual football fan, and not because of the sound effects of this. This guy is into it. I don't really get it. I'm talking about a casual football fan, but I'm going to sit down and watch this. So he made what can be a complicated game, this is as a broadcaster, he made it fun. He made it interesting, as if the games aren't interesting themselves. He made it understandable, and he put a smile on your face while you're watching these guys. You know what it can be like the final few minutes of a close game, but he made it not life and death to the viewer. He made it, I can't leave now, and he made it for every man. John was for every man. And maybe relating to all those wild players, not that they all were, and some who might have been straight, maybe that made him better as a broadcaster because you have to talk to everybody. But he never veered from being himself. What a great trait to have as a human being, right? Yeah. He was never larger than life. He was large, obviously. He was never larger than life. Like the broadcast was, this is fun. Didn't fun jump through the screen to you? It did to me.
Yeah, yeah. And you said talking about things that made it understandable. But I think it was the title of his first book when he's 1 knee equals 2 feet. Don't worry about 2 feet down. He's like, no, if you get your knee, 1 knee equals 2 feet. And those kind of things are what resonated with him. Casual fan football, but he resonated much larger than all of that. And I don't know if it was the Miller Lite commercials or whatever it was, but like everybody knew John. You couldn't go anywhere that people didn't know John Madden, which is incredible being a football coach.
Right, and a lot of people later on in his broadcast career, he was a coach, was he? I mean, I know he knows football, but I don't remember him as a, and to you and I, you know, to me, it's like, what? So, and then some, even the video games now, some people, he was on TV? Yeah, well, actually, he was for 3 decades. You know, him and Pat, him and Al, as good as it gets, say no more. So you say John Madden, but they don't necessarily know what put him in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They know him as someone that must be enjoyable to be with. I'll put it this way, John. I mean, he was everybody's friend, even though a small percentage of people ever actually met him. But everyone felt like he was their friend. And so we've all lost a friend tonight.
And through all that, the video game, whether the endorsements, the broadcasting, he was revered by football people because he never stopped being a football guy first.
Important, and he said that. I mean, all the things you're going to read tonight, tomorrow, that all the success becomes, or if it's, I don't think he used the word success. I'm still a coach. I still love the game. I still love the players. He was like you. I'd be at games with him sometimes. I'd talk some. I mean, we were around. But he had a broadcast to do, and I had things to do, and we weren't wasting time. But when he walked down the hall into the booth, you knew, well, this is big. There goes football. Right down the hall. But he didn't walk like that. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like he didn't, hey, I'm here, so here's the... No. But when he walked by, it was, well, this is real football here for the next 3 hours, you know?
Give me a play. We're going to show a bunch of them that you associate with John Madden, because we've talked about the sea of hands when we were getting ready for these. Give me one that you think of.
Well, think of the games he was in, not all that he won, obviously. When we start with the Immaculate Reception, which was an unbelievable game. The Raiders came from behind the last minute, Stabler off the bench, etc. Think of all the George Blanda games in the 70s. So George was 47. I mean, now Tom Brady is made, okay, but forget that.
No, look the 100.
George, well, but he won games like 4 or 5 with his foot and with his arm. The Sea of Hands you brought up. The Holy Roller was Old Man Willie, Bill King. That was the voice of the Raiders. The Goes to the Post. So I got to pick one of those. We've got to pick one that they won. Well, let's see. Yeah, well, that would be the Sea of Hands right there. That's they finally quelled the Dolphins, who, you know, had won a couple of years and won undefeated and beat them in the championship game one time. The Goes to the Post, Baltimore, you know, to Dave Casper, and here it is. Guys, this is almost if we. I kind of like this one because one of his players, one of his plays on the road. And, I mean, again, that's football. The old horseshoe at Memorial Stadium, I mean, it's like, ooh.
Sort of like his career as a whole. It's hard to pick any just one thing.
No, but he only, 10-year coach?
10 years.
And we just mentioned iconic plays. He hasn't coached for 40 years, or you know, and we lost him. A half a century in football, delivering it either on the sidelines, in the broadcast booth, and will be much more with the video games going. You talk about making a mark. I mean, the commissioner said, John, you know, he was football. He was All-American.
And as you said, did all of that for those 50 years with a smile And even though there was temper in there on occasion on the sideline, with a joy that was infectious.
That's the only reason that and like we're smiling tonight because I think he'd want us to do it. We're very sad to lose him, obviously, 85. But his spirit will live on for another half century. I mean, he made that much of a mark. We're all lucky to hear him, see him. A few of us that know him, and those that didn't know him, we're lucky to have him. I'm sorry for his wife Virginia. Son Joe played at Brown, so a little bit of a family there. Son Mike, sorry to all of them. And but he was America's friend.
Well, our good fortune to have you here tonight.
They should say that about all of us one day, but they won't.
Our good fortune to have you tonight, Chris Berman, for your insight, for your time, for your expertise. Thank you.
Nice to be in.
Chris Berman.
John, Chris, thanks a lot. So you guys mentioned Al Michaels, one of the legendary broadcasters to sit alongside a legendary broadcaster in John Madden. He issued the following statement. Of course, they partnered on Monday Night Football. Quote, "The term Renaissance man is tossed around a little too loosely these days, but John was as close as you can come. A dear friend, a wonderful partner in the broadcast booth, and a man who brought so much joy to so many people. I will miss him enormously." Well, the Raiders tweeted this photo of owner Mark Davis honoring John Madden at 6 p.m. local time, which was the original kickoff time for Monday Night Football back in the day. Davis said, quote, "Tonight, I light the torch in honor of and tribute to John Madden and Al Davis, who declared that the fire that burns the brightest in the Raiders organization is the will to win." Much more on the life of John Madden tonight here on SportsCenter.
The DQ chicken strip basket and rotisserie.
Against the tough run defense, can West Virginia find a way to punch it in? Mathis.
Frames. Start anything. We just empower them. We give them.
Can you hear me? You're moving past our monitor radius.
Oh, and there's Buck Rogers. Hi, Buck.
Well, hello there.
Hey, here comes the Starship Enterprise.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. It's coming at light speed.
Nice invisible plane.
Right here on MeTV, Sioux Falls 13.3.
Go to DakotaNewsNow.com and stay connected.
It's highly active peroxide droplets.
I think that's right, and I think Senator Reid knows what's at stake here in this country. He knows that this, you could argue, is a national emergency moment for American democracy. It's fragile. Its institutions were tested. Reid spoke out about that during the Trump presidency, and I think he's thinking ahead to what the next few years could be like if voting rights is not enacted. That's a view shared, by the way, by a lot of activists in the Democratic Party, but you don't hear that urgency in the message from Democratic leaders elected in Washington, and I think Reid, as you just played in that clip there, is trying to change or create momentum, by the way, to try to fortify those institutions here.
Rest in peace, Harry Reid. His wife put out a beautiful statement, which you all can read, but our thoughts are with his family tonight. Phil Rucker, Dr. Erwin Redlener, Joyce Vance, good to see all of you. Thank you. And coming up, the Supreme Court is about to weigh in on a couple of crucial cases, including one concerning vaccine mandates. Neil Katyal has made plenty of arguments before the court, and he's standing by for us. Later, a closer look at the struggle between public health and politics and the confusion that comes with mixed messaging. The 11th hour just getting underway on the last Tuesday night of 2021.
Like to go to work with for one day.
Don't miss the 5 she was teaching me to make during the pandemic. And all of a sudden she was gone, and I.
The change also affects other state employees who work 12-hour shifts.
You can search for those fascinating details.
Narduzzi, the head coach of Pitt, who spent all those years as defensive coordinator in East Lansing.
Drink me.
Real cowboys get customized car insurance with Liberty Mutual, so we only pay for what we need.
Hey, Tex, can someone else get a turn?
Yeah, hang on, I'm back right now on record. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
John Madden, Hall of Fame coach, groundbreaking broadcaster, Video game guy for a generation, died Tuesday at the age of 85. Fiery and temperamental on the sidelines, he won 103 games in a Super Bowl in just 10 seasons. Stress of the game gave the man an ulcer. He got out at age 42 and became far more famous in the broadcast booth than for Madden football video games. Impacted the game in ways great and small. The Lombardi Trophy and the yellow first down line sort of spawned by him. Plenty of love for Madden pouring in on Twitter, as you can imagine. Begin with Troy Aikman here, who said, John Madden was a treasure. He was a gift. He was an incredible friend. R.I.P. John. He loved those Cowboys teams that Aikman played on. Jerry Rice, also with the Twitter, a coaching and broadcasting legend, loved by all. You'll be missed. R.I.P. John Madden. Cooper Kupp, current player right now. You know he loved him. The road to Easy Street goes through the sewer. John Madden, R.I.P.
Joining us now here on SportsCenter to give us a little more context into the life and career of John Madden is an icon in his own right when it comes to sports broadcasting, Bob Costas. Bob, you know, when we talk about certain names and we throw the terms around like icons and legends, and I'll be the first to admit sometimes I do it too loosely, but when it comes to John Madden, how fitting is that term?
Yeah, both of those terms truly apply, and you're right, Michael. Sometimes we toss them around and they're less than fully accurate, but in the case of John Madden, he fits the bill, no question about it. It's interesting to note that anybody under the age of 50 really has no firsthand recollection of him as a coach. And yet, younger people definitely know who John Madden is, either through his broadcasting career or through the commercials and on an ongoing basis year after year through the Madden video game. I mean, he was not just an important football figure. He was a part of American pop culture.
How many people have been in movies, hosted SNL, voiced a character on The Simpsons, was in a Miller Lite commercial, and also had a video game? When you talk about pop culture, I mean, John Madden pretty much did everything, Bob.
Yeah, he checked a whole lot of boxes, and he did it while being 100% himself. There was no blueprint for being John Madden, either the way he coached or the way he became a public figure after coaching. Just by happenstance, I was the guy asked to do play-by-play for his audition game. And even though John was very nervous and definitely didn't have any plan to be a broadcaster, it was just something he kind of shrugged his shoulders about and said, yeah, let me see, I'll give it a try. After 4 quarters, I couldn't have predicted that he would have the spectacular career he did, but I certainly knew after that one game that he could be a very good broadcaster if he wanted to be.
Yeah, it turned out to be one of the best of all time. And the interesting thing about his career in broadcasting, Bob, is he approached it the same way he did coaching. He was breaking down film and having the production crew come into those film sessions to give them a better idea in terms of how they're going to cover that game that particular week. From your standpoint, how valuable was it what he was doing in the way he had impacted sports broadcasting?
You know, most of my career covering football was as a host. I did some play-by-play in the early 80s, but mostly as a host. But I was totally aware of what John Madden did, not just in his own career, but the way he affected everything. The way games were produced, the way they were directed, and the way other broadcasters, play-by-play men and analysts both, prepared. It was not standard procedure until John came along to have a scheduled meeting with the head coach and with maybe the quarterback and several other key players the day before the game. It was sort of just catch as catch can. And John said, no, we're going to do this in a different way. There's going to be a standard way that we prepare.
We talk about all the things he did in his career, and the NFL clearly has benefited from that. He was a vivacious personality when he was winning that Super Bowl for the Raiders back in the 70s. He became a broadcaster that people knew even if they didn't know the teams that were playing. And for young kids, as you mentioned earlier, that knew him from a video game standpoint, that also led to the popularity of the NFL. In your estimation, Bob, what has been his value to the growth of the league since going back to the 70s when he was there in Oakland?
Very, very hard to overstate it. He was a genuine character. People related to him. He was simultaneously an everyman and yet totally unique, which is an interesting combination. There was no one else quite like him, and yet he was completely relatable to the average fan. And what he was able to transmit, and this is a really important quality, and not everybody has it, he was able to transmit enjoyment. He was enjoying what he did. Yes, he was an expert, but you could feel how much he enjoyed it.
Sports is supposed to be fun, and John Madden seemed like he was having fun with each and every broadcast. And as you said, Bob, it made its way into the living rooms of millions and millions of people each and every time he was in the booth. We appreciate the time, Bob.
Thank you, Michael.
ESPN's president, Jimmy Pitaro, a statement here on John Madden released this evening. John Madden was an iconic figure, transitioning from a successful coach to one of the most impactful and distinctive broadcasters in history across all genres. His love of football was only matched by a fan's admiration for him. He will forever be synonymous with the game.
Remembering John Madden, we could do it all night, but we have so many more voices to share the legacy that was the man that was simply football.
There are lots of ways to love that chicken from Popeyes, like our sandwich and our nuggets. Both are.
Jordan Howden ended up doing a nice job to knock that ball away. The very unusual formation did not work.
When Congress used the words grave danger, they weren't talking about undertakers or something like that. They were talking about exactly this. Many Americans right now are afraid to go to work because they're going to be exposed to the virus. That's what OSHA is designed to stand for, and that's why I think it's not a hard case next week.
Yeah, that's even stepped up since this was first filed. So again, that date is on the 7th of January. I also want to ask you about Harry Reid, because
stage crews out there, and I say, and they're the sound guys, and I'll say, hey, we could have done this without y'all tonight.
Show people what's happening. Having people in Pierre and in Aberdeen helps.
Pause, and you've told me.
Rosenquist misses, but gets her own rebound, scores, gets fouled, makes the free throw. She had 31 points. They win it, 67-66. To Aberdeen, where the top-ranked Cavaliers of Roncalli hosting the Wolverines of Harriet Selby tonight. Looking good for Derek Larson. That's Ava Hansen hitting the three. She's a freshman. Then Olivia Hansen nailing the
injury sidelined her for several months. Avery Broughton and the Corsica Stickney Jaguars were off to a 9-2 start last season, and then came a bump in the road. Broughton, their leading scorer, tore her ACL in late January.
She was boxing out on a free throw and got a girl collided with her from the side and just kind of took out right at the knee. And so we went in the next day, and that's when.
January 6th attack on the Capitol approaches. We're learning more tonight about what to expect from the House Select Committee investigating it, most significantly about when the accountability process might actually go public. CNN has learned that the committee plans to hold hearings, be followed by an interim report by summer and a full report by the fall, though the timeline is said to be flexible. Members have, as you know, already interviewed more than 300 witnesses and have issued dozens of subpoenas. As for what we might get to see when we actually see it on TV, we're joined by David Gergens.
Run to end the half, led by Vcr. She had 27. They couldn't stop her. The Titans led almost the whole way. But in the second half, watch this block by Hillary Behrens. Had only 2 points in the first half. She'll stop, she'll pop. She wanted to make the highlights. She did. She had 12 points, 10 in the second half. And she would pass to Sydney Thuy, who hit the game winner with a second left as the Lynx survived what looked to be a big upset. 61-60 was your final. Brandon Valley victorious. Roncalli 59-28, and Dakota Valley 67-66 in that great game. As for guys' games of ranked teams, Dakota Valley wins big, winner wins big, and updating that should be 51-46 White River in the final minute. Looks like the Tigers are going to win there. The Pierre Governors certainly know what it takes to win. Several of their basketball players were on the football team that made it 5 straight state titles. And the basketball team has picked up where the football team, which won the state title, left off. New head coach Brianna Kusler enjoys having so many multi-sport athletes on her team, and she knows that only makes her 5th-ranked basketball team that much better. And so far, they're undefeated 4 games into the season.
This fall, we've had naturally the success that they had on the football field has played in and translated really well here, and we have a lot of athletes. And I talked the other day about how important relationships are, and not only with the kids but with other coaches. We all share athletes here, and that's something that we have very few basketball-only kids.
And you can see just where that confidence from other sports carries over to the basketball court for Brianna's team. They are certainly looking good so far with 4 straight victories to start the season. under the first female to coach a boys AA team in South Dakota history. And finally, the Timberwolves hosted the Celtics last night. They won that game. Tonight it was the Knickerbockers, and Malik Beasley was probably, even though he didn't shoot well, he still had 20 points in this game. There he is. Let's go to the scoreboard, though. They just couldn't score enough. They lose 96-88 to the Knicks, short for Knickerbockers. That's sports. We'll be right back.
Don't let's...
These treatment programs are proven to work.
Good throw. This mark in NFL history. During his decade guiding the silver and black, John Madden never had a losing season.
Like John Madden, Mike Holmgren won a Lombardi Trophy for winning a Super Bowl. He coached in 2 others with the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. He's with us now on SportsCenter. And Coach Holmgren, if we could, let's go back to when you were a young, up-and-coming, a starting coach in the high school areas in the Bay Area. And there's John Madden at really the height of his success with the Oakland Raiders. How was he revered or looked at by folks that you were with at that time?
Well, you know, John, thank you, John, for having me on. But John Madden was the man. I mean, as a high school coach for myself at the time, and being a Bay Area guy my whole life, you know, he was special. He had done a lot of stuff already, and he had a lot of stuff to do. And you know, I think young people, young guys who were in the coaching profession looked up to him and thought about him. And honestly, after that, he became a good friend of mine.
He's out of the business in terms of head coaching at an age just before you get your head coaching job. You're in your early 40s. He's out. Can you fathom that in this day and age? That guy gave it up as you were getting started.
You know, John, I actually asked him that question at one point in my career, you know, why he got out when he did. Because, no, I mean, look at it today. If coaches are as successful as he was, they don't just stop. And he stopped. And he had reasons for it, and bless his heart, he wanted to do something else, and he had accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. And, no, that was very unique in this business.
How did that friendship between you two develop and grow?
Well, in broadcasting, he would broadcast our games, and so we're both from the Bay Area. We had we had similarities, but also differences in the Bay Area. I have a home in Santa Cruz, California, and every summer we'd go down there. Kathy and I would go down to Carmel, and bang, John would be in this one coffee shop, and every time I'd go in there and we'd sit and talk football. So we became pretty good friends, I think. And then when I was able to take a step back and decide kind of some of the things I wanted to do with my future, I went to him. He was a mentor to me, and you know, and not only a friend but a mentor.
So if there was a piece of advice that you would think is the most important one he ever dispensed to you, what would that have been?
He goes, you know, he was reluctant to just say, do this, but he said, believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and stick with it. And if the time comes when you want to change, believe you're doing the right thing, and then when you do that, just go hard at it.
He had an affinity for a lot of your guys. He loved Brett Favre. He liked Reggie White. He liked Sean Alexander. What was it about those guys? Was there a common characteristic in those players that he sort of took a shine to?
You know what, John? I wouldn't say that. I would say that he respected great effort and great players. And of course Brett. You know, Brett. I would say he loved Brett, and he loved Brett because Brett was a little bit out there, you know, and John liked that. He probably reminded him of some of the guys he had on the Raiders.
Brett Favre might have had a little Kenny Stabler in him. Leave me with this one, because so many people, depending on when your generation, and we'll hear this a lot throughout our programming coverage of John Madden, he was the video game guy, he was the broadcaster. Why is it amongst people like you, head coaches, guys in the profession, never stop seeing him and revering him as a football coach?
Well, I think it's generational. I mean, I think you know, the Madden games and all that kind of stuff that people playing now. Okay, that's one thing, but he was a mentor to me, and I think people my age and people that knew him when he was broadcasting and yet coming in and being a friend to you in your facility, and being able to ask him questions about stuff. And I think that's what we got out of it. You know, he was a great football coach, but honestly, he was a great friend.
Well, you certainly have helped in that endeavor in helping to give us more information on John Madden and who he was as a football coach. Mike Holmgren, thanks so much, and good luck to you, and best in the new year.
Hey, same to you, John. Thank you very much.
Well, that fella right there, Peyton Manning, has got a sense of history when it comes to the game. 5-time NFL MVP. Here's what Peyton Manning had to say. It was an honor and privilege to know Coach Madden, and my thoughts and prayers are with his family. As I said at my retirement press conference, my grandfather always loved John Madden. My rookie year, he was always asking if Madden and Summerall were going to broadcast one of the Colts games. And I said, Papa, the Colts are 2-8, and we're playing the Bengals, who are 3-7. Madden and Summerall don't do those games. But the next year, we played the Cowboys with John Madden and Pat Summerall broadcasting the game. My grandfather was so excited. We won the game that day, and John Madden said the Colts are on their way. When John Madden says that meant something. I always appreciated his friendship and support of my football career. There'll never be another like him. May God's peace be with his family. Rest in peace, Coach Madden.
Joining us now in Sports Center, Steve Young, and his teams were so good back in the Niner days that John Madden called several of Steve's game. And Steve, I wonder from a player standpoint, back then, what was it like when you knew that John Madden was going to be calling your game?
Well, we had a lot of big games through the years, and John and Pat did most of the games. It felt like every week it was, they were kind of the 49er broadcasting booth. But it was, in many ways, John was iconic. And I remember the first time I met him, he was doing a game. I want to say we were in Washington, playing in Washington, and what he would do is he'd park the bus, the Madden Cruiser, right outside the locker room doors, and then you'd come out and you do your production meeting. And so it was the first time that I was ever going to say hello to him, Bay Area guy, and known him for the Raiders for all the time. And I climb on the bus, and I don't even sit down. He doesn't even say hello. He goes, "Did you comb your hair with a pork chop?" and I like, I mean, here's John Madden. I just met him. And he's like, I go, no, I didn't comb with a pork chop. And Pat Summerall goes, it's really funny. And then, so the next day, we're doing the game. I'm playing pretty well. And he goes, you know what? I was with Steve Young yesterday on the bus, and he combs his hair with a pork chop. And so nationwide, I mean, the next 20 years, that's anyone ever talking about. I was like, hey, do you comb your hair with a pork chop? You know, because that was the power of Madden. And really, to pay this story off, 20 years later, we're at the Madden studios over in Pleasanton near his home, where he lived in Pleasanton, California. And we would tape commercials there. People would Jerry Rice and I were doing a Van Heusen commercial for, suits and so forth and ties. And Madden shows up. He comes down the street, and John shows up, and I'm in the other, and then he goes, he throws a pork chop through the door. It's like 20 years later, I can't get rid of it. But I think what the story is today for me, the heartfelt thing is that I bet you, everybody has a pork chop story with John Madden. Something about the interaction you had was personal. It was funny. It was engaging. It was authentic. It was, I don't know. It just, that I think he's beloved because of the vulnerability that he had you feel, and the way that he kind of exuded that. So I through the years, that was the first time I met him, was the pork chop story, and then for years and years we laughed about all kinds of things. In fact, I enjoyed getting on the bus because then I know I could relax. I could laugh a little bit. Before a big game, we're playing the Cowboys, playing the Packers, and so I get on the bus. I knew I was going to enjoy it for 15, 20 minutes and relax, and I looked forward to it, to getting on with Pat and Coach Madden.
Steve, you mentioned the Bay Area. That's, of course, where he grew up. Went to colleges, multiple colleges there in the Bay Area, and of course, Coach Oakland. He was a frequent guest on local radio for decades, even while he was doing national television there in the Bay Area. For someone who spent a large portion of their lives in that area of the country, what did John Madden mean to that region?
Well, he had a famous show on KCBS, and so and I was doing a show on KMBR, and we would go back and forth. He would say something to egg me on, and then they'd get on the show. Did you hear what John said about you today? I'm like, oh, will you tell him? We would have conversations through the radio show, back and forth. I mean, but Coach was, in many ways, the NFL, the people that love the NFL today is so entrenched in society, and in many ways its popularity was burgeoning because of Coach Madden, the way that he allowed, I mean, I think for
This is a coordinated monthly test of the broadcast stations of your area. Equipment that can quickly warn you during an emergency is being tested. If this had been an actual emergency, official messages would have followed the alert tones. This station serves the Sioux Falls area. This concludes this test of the emergency alert system.
things that had happened to the bus or to the people he ran into or the things he saw. I mean, he was a phenomenal storyteller. You could ask him any question, and he would have a story to go along with the principle that he just wanted to teach there, and it was always fun and engaging.
He was the uncle that we all wish we had, and a few times in the fall, we had him, at least for a couple hours on national television. Steve Young, appreciate the insight and the stories here on SportsCenter.
And my best to Virginia family.
When SportsCenter continues, the Lakers try to end a 5-game skid. How do you do that? Well, wouldn't hurt to invite the Rockets, and then if maybe Russ and LeBron could get a triple-double.
I gotta know who oven baked my bacon. Who did it? Tyler. Come on over here, man.
Oh, wow. Ow. Choose wisely.